So on behalf of the City of Yonkers and the Untermyer Gardens Conservancy, welcome back to the mixed hydrangea border. I went on so long last time about this border that it almost became a short feature film. So we'll take a few moments and finish walking through the border. So another way to add some low interest to a big mixed border is to throw some annuals in, some holes you might have in your border. So we can see we've dotted around some of this brown sedge. It's a Carex cultivar called Red Rooster, one of my favorite plants of all times. We also have some low-growing begonias that would be treated as annuals in here. And then here close to me, acting as a really interesting grass-like ground cover, is an Ophiopogon. It's called LILYTURF. And again, it provides a nice contrast to some of the big foliage we've been looking at in this mixed border. So again, I really want to emphasize the idea of using hydrangeas in a mixed border. We have a huge collection of hydrangeas here, but mixing it up quite a bit. I'm standing next to this viburnum, but I really wanted to talk about this perennial. It's Persicaria polymorpha. So even though it has this big stature of a shrub-like plant, it's a perennial. It dies back down to the ground every year and gives us these really interesting panicles of white flower. And again, that whole design principle of plants that are the same but a little bit different, we planted that right next to a Hydrangea paniculata tardiva. And it gives you sort of that same flower structure, a little bit more showy than the Persicaria, but the two together just make each other look a little bit better. Another ground cover we've used in the mixed hydrangea border is this native Pachysandra. It's Pachysandra procumbens. It doesn't grow as fast as the Asian Pachysandra, but it belongs here in the garden, and I think it complements the foliage shape of the hydrangeas very well. So moving down the mixed hydrangea border, I wanted to stop and look at this particular plant. While we think of lace caps and big panicles when we talk about a hydrangea, this particular plant at this particular moment is really stunning to me. I love the foliage. It kind of looks like the rare Hydrangea aspera that we have planted around, but these buds that will in the next week or so reveal some beautiful lace caps are really stunning to me, and that provides a nice contrast to the rest of the flowers in the garden at the moment. This is a Hydrangea INVOLUCRATA. It's a cultivar named Plena, and again, while it will have some nice flowers here in the next week or two, I love it at this stage in the garden. And again, stressing that a mixed border should be very diverse with different sort of plants and different sort of heights and textures and colors. Here in the foreground, we're looking at an Acorus. The cultivar's Ogon, that's the yellow grass-like plant. We have the foliage from our spring flowering columbine there, and again, looking at our Ligularia. So again, combinations like this in a mixed border really give it a certain pop that if it were just all shrubs, we'd just sort of be lacking. So here I'm standing in front of almost being dwarfed by another Hydrangea paniculata. You can see the flowers up on top with their big panicles of white, but one of the reasons we planted this particular plant is for its variegated foliage. This is a Hydrangea paniculata called Summer Snow. Again, it can take some dark spaces. The variegated foliage might add some light to a dark space in the garden, but just for the diversity of this particular border, we've liked to include this in here too. It's planted next to another viburnum onondaga, like we talked about earlier, but the plant I'm really interested in at the moment is this Heptacodium MICONIOIDES, or the seven sunflower. We grow this because we love the exfoliating bark. This is still a fairly young plant, so it's just starting to get that characteristic bark, but there's great color in the bark, and as it starts to peel, it becomes even more interesting. So we've worked on pruning it up so that this bark would be a sculptural element, that the trunks would be a sculptural element in the garden. And then on top of that, it is about to flower, and these buds will open up to interesting enough white flowers, but what's really nice is the sepals that subtint the flowers turn a great maroonish pink and carry through all the way into early winter. A favorite plant here at Untermyer Gardens, we've used it extensively throughout the entire area, is Hakonechloa. And this is a cultivar called All Gold. It's a Japanese forest grass. Again, working in the front of a mixed border, it really provides a different color and a different contrast to some of the big shrubs around it. And this particular cultivar with all yellow foliage does burn in the sun a little bit, so you want to make sure it's in the shade. Again, looking at the front of the border, shouldn't be afraid to mix in some annuals with your perennials. So we have that dark leaf ajuga in the middle of this planting, and it's surrounded by a bright chartreuse ligularia. It's Ligularia numularia aurea. In the foreground, we have another bright yellow foliage plant that's Duranta Gold Edge. Both of those plants are annuals, and we just mixed them here in the front of our mixed border. So the last really cool plant in our mixed hydrangea border is this Hydrangea aspera. It's a fairly rare subspecies called Sargentii. It almost looks like a tropical plant. If it weren't for the flowers, you wouldn't even know it's a hydrangea. So thank you for this quick walk around through our hydrangea mixed border. The rest of the garden is in full song. Our summer annuals are really coming into their own. And while these videos are a lot of fun, I invite you to come to the garden and see all these plants for yourself.